Welcome to your deep dive on Russian history. You've given us a really interesting mix of sources here. It seems like you're interested in not just like the timeline of events, but also the impact of geography and culture. So get ready, you're going to make some fascinating connections.
Yeah. We're going to go beyond the highlights from your excerpts of A Brief History of Russia and try to connect the dots in a way that will give you those aha moments.
Okay, let's unpack this. The source, right off the bat, highlights just how massive Russia is.
It's huge.
Spanning across Europe and Asia. Siberia alone, just Siberia, is larger than Canada. Imagine the variety that brings. Right. And then there's this incredible detail that really stood out to me.
Oh, yeah, the Eurasian plain,
Yeah.
which dominates most of Russia, has shaped the country's history in really profound ways. I think we'll see how this geography has impacted everything from agriculture and trade to military campaigns and even the Russian psyche.
So the land itself has really been a driving force in the destiny of the Russian people. And to fully grasp that, we need to sort of break down the diverse landscapes that actually make up Russia.
For sure.
The source divides into four distinct zones. The tundra, the taiga, that's a huge evergreen forest.
Yeah.
The steppe, think like wide open grasslands, and desert.
Yeah.
Each zone presented unique challenges and opportunities for the people who live there.
Yeah.
And I'm struck by the source's description of the taiga as a universe without end. It's this vast evergreen forest that seems to stretch on forever. I mean, what stories could those trees tell?
Yeah, it is a powerful image. But the source also points out that the taiga faces, very real modern-day threats from logging and mining and, these increasingly frequent forest fires. It highlights the difficult environmental challenges facing Russia today.
Yeah, so we have this incredibly vast taiga.
Yeah.
What about the other zones?
Well, you have the tundra in the far north, a very harsh environment of swamps and permafrost. Then there's the steppe, a vast grassland that kind of evokes images of the American Great Plains, but with a harsher, drier climate as you move eastward. And so, like you said, each of these zones had its own sets of challenges, opportunities for the people who live there.
Speaking of opportunities and challenges, the Volga River comes to mind. It's not simply Europe's longest river. It's like this powerful symbol of Russia itself. The source mentions how the Volga boatmen, hauling barges along the river, have inspired famous paintings and literature. It makes you kind of wonder about their lives, the stories they carried with them.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating is that the Volga played a crucial role in World War II, particularly in the Battle of Stalingrad, where the river became a strategic focal point. The source underscores the heroic resistance of the Soviet people during this battle, which became a turning point in the war. But it also notes how the Volga has, unfortunately, suffered from pollution and damming in recent times, a reminder of the impact of human activities on even the mightiest of rivers.
Yeah, it reminds us that progress isn't always linear and sometimes comes at a cost.
Indeed.
And while we're on the topic of rivers, we can't overlook Siberia's massive rivers.
Oh, of course not.
Like the Ob, Yenisei, and Lena. These names you might not know, but they represent an entirely different side of Russia, often overlooked, flowing north into the Arctic Sea.
Yeah.
And speaking of overlooked, the source mentions Lake Baikal, the oldest and deepest lake in the world.
It's incredible.
It holds 1/5 of the planet's fresh water. That's mind-blowing. It makes you realize the scale of Russia's natural resources, but also the responsibility that comes with managing such treasures.
For sure. Lake Baikal is a truly unique ecosystem, home to thousands of endemic species found nowhere else on Earth. However, as the source points out, it faces threats from pollution and other human activities. And this really underscores the challenge of balancing economic development with environmental protection, a dilemma that faces many nations, but is particularly acute in a country as vast and as resource-rich as Russia.
So, Russia's geography has clearly played this pivotal role in shaping its history. But what about its cities? How have they contributed to this story?
Cities have served as centers of power, commerce, and culture, really reflecting the evolution of Russian society. No exploration of Russian history would be complete without delving to the significance of Moscow and St. Petersburg.
They're practically synonymous with Russia, Moscow and St. Petersburg. They evoke these images of iconic landmarks and just pivotal moments in the nation's past. What makes these cities so central to the Russian story?
I think they represent two distinct phases of Russian history. Moscow, with its Kremlin and St. Basil's Cathedral, embodies the spirit of old Muscovy, the principality that united the Russian people and ultimately cast off Mongol rule. St. Petersburg, on the other hand, was envisioned by Peter the Great as a window to the West.
It's fascinating how he just built it from scratch on a swamp.
Yeah.
Talk about a bold vision.
It was a monumental undertaking, symbolizing Russia's ambition to become a major European power. St. Petersburg's Western-inspired architecture and strategic location on the Baltic Sea reflected Peter's determination to modernize Russia and integrate it into that European political and cultural landscape. And of course, we can't forget the incredible story of Leningrad's resistance during World War II. For 900 days, the city endured a brutal siege, with 800,000 of its citizens perishing. It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of just unimaginable hardship.
It makes you consider how such a pivotal event shaped the city's identity and the psyche of its people.
Absolutely. And speaking of shaping identities, we should discuss the impact of climate on Russian history. The source underscores how Russia's harsh winters, in particular, has been a defining feature of the country's experience.
We've got some incredible quotes from foreign visitors in the source, ranging from humorous to downright horrified descriptions of Russian winters.
Yeah.
Remember the one about saliva freezing before it hits the ground? Paints a vivid picture, doesn't it?
Right. And these accounts really illustrate how challenging it was for outsiders to grasp the realities of life in Russia. But what's remarkable is how the Russians adapted to these conditions. Developing unique architectural styles, clothing, even cultural practices that help them not only survive, but thrive in such a harsh environment.
It seems like the climate, with its extremes, played a role in forging a certain resilience and resourcefulness in the Russian people.
It's a perspective echoed throughout Russian literature and history. Now, shifting gears a bit, let's delve into some of the key historical moments that shaped this nation. The source guides us through the rise and fall of Kievan Rus, the Mongol conquest, and the emergence of Muscovy.
It's amazing to think that Kievan Rus, this early Slavic state centered around Kiev, laid the groundwork for what would eventually become Russia. What were some of the defining features of this era?
Well, Kievan Rus was a loose federation of Slavic tribes that emerged in the 9th century. Its leaders faced challenges that would resonate throughout Russian history: internal divisions, external threats, and the constant need to balance tradition with the forces of change. The source highlights Prince Yaroslav the Wise, who gave Russia its first law code, the Russkaya Pravda.
That's quite an accomplishment. Suggests a forward-thinking leader who recognized the importance of a legal framework for a united state.
Exactly. Yaroslav also fostered literacy and cultural development, making Kiev a major center of learning and art. However, Kievan Rus couldn't escape the tumultuous currents of history. The source describes the devastating Mongol conquest in the 13th century, a turning point that profoundly impacted the course of Russian history.
That must have been a period of immense upheaval.
It was. Led by Batu Khan, Mongol armies swept across the Eurasian plain, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. The source paints a vivid picture of the destruction of Kiev, describing a once great city reduced to ruins. However, even in this dark period, there were glimmers of hope and resistance. One notable figure is Prince Alexander Nevsky, who defended Novgorod against invaders from the west.
His victories over the Swedes and the Teutonic Knights are legendary, solidifying his status as a national hero.
And his story underscores that recurring theme in Russian history, defending the homeland against threats from both east and west. This constant pressure from multiple directions contributed to the development of a strong military tradition and a sense of national unity, forged in the face of adversity. And from the ashes of the Mongol conquest arose a new power, the principality of Muscovy, centered around the city of Moscow.
This shift in power from Kiev to Moscow marks a significant transition. What factors contributed to the rise of Muscovy?
Well, the rise of Muscovy is a fascinating tale of resilience, ambition, and shrewd political maneuvering. The Muscovite princes consolidated their power through strategic alliances, military campaigns, and just a gradual assertion of their authority over neighboring territories. The source points to Ivan III, known as Ivan the Great, as a key figure in this process. He broke free from Mongol rule, expanded Muscovy's territory, and laid the foundations for a strong, centralized state.
His reign seems to mark a turning point, with Muscovy asserting itself as an independent power and challenging the old order.
He was a shrewd ruler who understood the importance of symbolism and power projection. He adopted the title of Tsar, a clear signal of his imperial ambitions and a claim to the legacy of the Byzantine Empire. His marriage to Sophia Paleolog, a niece of the last Byzantine emperor, further enhanced his prestige and legitimacy. However, his grandson, Ivan IV, better known as Ivan the Terrible, would cast a long shadow over this period.
Ivan the Terrible's reign is often associated with tyranny and brutality. What led to this dark chapter in Russian history.
Ivan V was a complex and contradictory figure. He was a brilliant military strategist and a capable administrator who expanded Russia's territory eastward, conquering the Khanates of Kazan and Astrakhan. He also implemented important reforms, including the introduction of a new law code and the establishment of a centralized bureaucracy. However, he was also prone to paranoia and fits of rage, and his reign was marked by periods of extreme violence and repression.
The source mentions the Oprichnina, a period of state-sponsored terror during Ivan's reign. What was the Oprichnina, and what was its impact on Russian society?
The Oprichnina was a system of terror that Ivan V established in 1565. He created a personal guard, the Oprichniki, who were granted sweeping powers to arrest, torture, and execute anyone suspected of disloyalty. The Oprichnina targeted the boyars, the traditional Russian nobility, whom Ivan saw as a threat to his absolute power. And this period of terror had a devastating impact on Russian society. It created a climate of fear and suspicion, undermined the rule of law, and contributed to the economic decline of the country.
It's fascinating how the source compares the Russian autocracy with European monarchies. Even foreign observers, accustomed to absolute rulers, were struck by the seemingly limitless power of the czars. How did the Russian concept of autocracy differ from its European counterparts?
Well, while European monarchs often face limitations on their power from institutions like parliaments, the church, or powerful noble families, the Russian czars enjoyed a level of autocracy that was arguably unmatched in Europe. And this had deep roots in Russian history and culture. The vastness of the land, the legacy of Mongol rule, and the absence of a strong tradition of representative government all contributed to the development of a highly centralized and authoritarian state.
And this concentration of power in the hands of the Tsar had significant implications for Russian society and politics, shaping the relationship between the ruler and the ruled for centuries to come. And this leads us to the eras of Peter the Great and Catherine the Great, two rulers who embarked on ambitious programs to modernize Russia and elevate its standing on the world stage. What were their motivations, and how did they go about achieving their goals?
Both Peter and Catherine were deeply influenced by the Enlightenment, and they saw Russia as having the potential to become a major European power. However, their approaches to modernization differed significantly.
How so?
Well, Peter the Great was a very hands-on, often ruthless modernizer. He traveled to Western Europe, he studied shipbuilding, military tactics, administration, and he brought those ideas back to Russia with a vengeance. He implemented these sweeping reforms in the military, government, even social customs, determined to drag Russia into the modern world, even if it meant using force.
The source mentions how he personally cut the beards of his nobles, a symbolic act that highlighted his commitment to breaking with tradition.
Yeah, it was a dramatic gesture, demonstrating his determination to impose westernization from the top down. He also established a new capital, St. Petersburg, a modern city designed to showcase Russia's newfound sophistication and its connection to Europe.
It sounds like Peter's approach was quite radical. What about Catherine the Great?
Catherine was more subtle and strategic. She cultivated an image as an enlightened ruler. She corresponded with European philosophers, promoted education and the arts. However, beneath this progressive facade, she was also a pragmatist who consolidated her power and maintained the system of serfdom.
So she walked a fine line between embracing progressive ideas and upholding the existing social order.
Exactly. Her reforms were often more about appearances and consolidating power than genuine social change. However, she did expand Russia's territory significantly and played a key role in European politics. Both Peter and Catherine left a lasting impact on Russia, but their legacies are complex and continue to be debated by historians. It's this constant push and pull between westernization and traditionalism that has made Russia such a fascinating subject to study.
It seems like this tension runs throughout Russian history and culture.
You're right. And speaking of culture, the source takes us on a fascinating detour into the realm of Russian literature, music, and art, revealing how these forms of expression really reflect the country's unique character and its historical journey.
I find it intriguing that the source highlights how Russian literature in particular has always grappled with these profound questions about life, death, faith, suffering, the search for meaning.
Yeah. Russian literature has a depth and intensity that is truly captivating. It reflects the country's vast landscapes, its turbulent history, and the soul of its people. From the early epic tales like the Primary Russian Chronicle and the Tale of the Host of Igor, which captured the spirit of early Russia and its struggles for unity, to the great novels of the 19th century, Russian literature has consistently explored the human condition in all its complexity.
The source mentions Pushkin as a literary star, a master of poetry, prose, and drama whose works continue to resonate with readers today. What makes him such an enduring figure?
Pushkin is considered the father of modern Russian literature. He revolutionized the Russian language, and his works explored universal themes of love, loss, ambition, the search for identity. His influence on subsequent generations of Russian writers is immeasurable.
And then there's Gogol, with his satirical wit and social commentary, exposing the absurdities and injustices of Russian society. His works are both entertaining and thought-provoking.
Yeah, Gogol was a master of satire and grotesque humor, exposing the hypocrisy and corruption of the Russian bureaucracy and the provincial elite. His novel Dead Souls is considered a masterpiece of social commentary, while his short stories like The Overcoat and The Nose delve into the alienation and absurdity of modern life.
And, of course, we can't forget Dostoevsky, whose novels delve into the darkest depths of the human psyche, exploring themes of guilt, redemption, faith, and the struggle between good and evil.
Dostoevsky's works are intense psychological journeys that challenge readers to confront their own beliefs and values. His novels like Crime and Punishment, The Idiot, and The Brothers Karamazov are considered cornerstones of world literature, and his influence on 20th century thought is profound. The source specifically mentions the Grand Inquisitor chapter in The Brothers Karamazov, a philosophical parable that explores the nature of faith, freedom, and the role of the church in society.
It's a section of the novel that has sparked countless discussions and interpretations.
Absolutely. And it's a testament to Dostoevsky's ability to pose these timeless questions that continue to resonate with readers across generations. And then there's Tolstoy, whose epic novels War and Peace and Anna Karenina provide panoramic views of Russian society during a period of great change.
Tolstoy's works are known for their sprawling narratives, complex characters, and philosophical explorations of love, war, and the meaning of life.
Tolstoy was a master storyteller who captured the complexities of Russian society and the human condition with remarkable depth and sensitivity. His novels continue to be studied and debated for their psychological insights and their enduring relevance to contemporary issues. The source also touches on the Silver Age of Russian culture, a period of extraordinary creativity in the early 20th century, just before the revolution.
It seems like a period of artistic and intellectual ferment, with new ideas and forms of expression emerging across various disciplines.
It was a time of great experimentation in literature, music, art, and theater. Symbolism, with poets like Bloch and Billy, explored the mystical and the subconscious, while Acmeism, represented by Akhmatova and Mandelstam, emphasized clarity and precision of language. In music, composers like Stravinsky, Rachmaninoff, and Prokofiev revolutionized classical music with their innovative and often dissonant compositions, reflecting the anxieties and dynamism of the era. This outpouring of creativity, sadly cut short by the tumultuous events of the revolution and the subsequent civil war, left a lasting legacy on Russian culture.
It's remarkable how Russian culture, even in the face of immense political and social upheaval, continue to flourish and produce these works of enduring beauty and significance.
It speaks to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of art to transcend even the darkest of times. Understanding Russian history requires going beyond dates, battles, and political ideologies. It's about appreciating the soul of a nation, its dreams, its struggles, and its enduring capacity for both great suffering and great beauty.
This deep dive has provided an incredible overview of Russian history, but it's clear this is just the beginning of the journey. What advice would you give to our listener who is eager to delve deeper into this fascinating subject?
Well, I'd encourage our listener to explore the works of Russian writers, poets, and composers that we've discussed. Immerse yourself in their stories, their ideas, their artistic expressions to gain a deeper understanding of the Russian soul. And don't limit yourself to just the classics. There are many contemporary Russian authors, artists, and filmmakers whose works offer fresh perspectives on the country's present and its evolving identity.
That's great advice. This deep dive has certainly sparked my curiosity, and I'm eager to learn more. What stood out most to you in this exploration of Russian history?
I'm struck by the enduring tension between Russia's desire for westernization and its longing for a unique path, a theme that runs through its history, its culture, its relationship with the world. It's a tension that continues to shape Russia's identity and its place on the global stage.
It's a reminder that history is not simply a collection of facts and dates, but a dynamic process of change, continuity, and this constant interplay between ideas, personalities, and events. I hope this deep dive has inspired you, our listener, to continue exploring the rich tapestry of Russian history and to draw your own conclusions about this complex and fascinating nation. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.